welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja, and these are the headlines. Israeli air raids have continued to pound the Gaza Strip for the 10th consecutive day. At least 220 Palestinians, including 63 children, have been killed in the Israeli aggression so far. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces killed 4 Palestinian protesters and injured 71 others. France, in coordination with Egypt and Jordan, has proposed a UN Security Council resolution for a ceasefire. Meanwhile, during a meeting with Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi in Ankara, Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan lauded Islamabad's efforts for the Palestine cause. U.S. Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad says the Taliban have made substantial progress on Doha commitments, but they need to do more. During a Congress hearing, Khalilzad said the troops' withdrawal from Afghanistan has so far taken place without major incident. However, he added the forces are ready to respond forcefully if they are attacked. China has condemned U.S. warships' transit in Taiwan Strait, saying Washington is deliberately disrupting the regional situation. In a statement, Chinese military Eastern Command said U.S. actions send wrong signals to Taiwan independence forces. It added such provocative moves endanger peace and stability across Taiwan Strait. India has logged its highest single-day COVID-19 fatalities with over 4,500 deaths. The country has registered more than 267,000 coronavirus cases in the past 24 hours. In Pakistan, 104 people lost their lives to the virus and over 3,200 tested positive overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.4 million lives and infected over 163 million people so far. And in football, Manchester United have been held to a 1-1 home draw by relegated Fulham in their penultimate Premier League match. The match also marked the return of in-person spectators' attendance at Old Trafford. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Israeli air raids continue to pound the Gaza Strip for the 10th consecutive day. At least 220 Palestinians, including 63 children, have been martyred in the aggression so far. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces have martyred 4 more protesters and injured 71 others. The Palestinian foreign minister has sent a letter to the International Criminal Court's prosecutor's office. Riyad al-Maliki called for an investigation into Israel's war crimes in Gaza and the West Bank. The Norwegian Refugee Council says 11 children killed in Gaza were enrolled in trauma therapy. The UN says nearly 450 buildings in Gaza have been destroyed, including 6 hospitals and 9 primary health care centers. 5 Lebanese protesters were wounded as the Israeli army fired tear gas on the Lebanon-Israel border. Meanwhile, hundreds from Israel's Arab minority turned out in Nazareth for a pro-Palestinian rally. Protesters also gathered across the street from the Israeli consulate in New York, denouncing Israel's attacks on Gaza. Rallies in support of Palestine were also held in Boston and Los Angeles. France, in coordination with Egypt and Jordan, has proposed a UN Security Council resolution calling for a ceasefire. The UN General Assembly will hold an urgent meeting on Thursday to discuss the crisis in occupied territories. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has appreciated Pakistan's efforts for the rights of oppressed Palestinians. He made these remarks in a meeting with Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi in Ankara. Qureshi appreciated Erdogan's clear and unequivocal position on Kashmir and the Palestine disputes. He said both Pakistan and Turkey enjoy strong relations and share identical views on a host of issues. Earlier, Qureshi also met with his Turkish counterpart, Mevlut Cavusoglu. The two discussed ways to mobilize the international community to help stop Israeli aggression against Palestinians. Qureshi lauded Turkey's valuable efforts to re-energize the Afghan peace process. U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad says that the Taliban have made substantial progress on Doha commitments, but they need to do more. During a Congress hearing, Khalilzad said troops withdrawal from Afghanistan has so far taken place without major incident. However, he added the forces are ready to respond forcefully if they are attacked. Khalilzad said the threat posed by al-Qaeda in Afghanistan has decreased in recent years. Meanwhile, a top U.S. general said Washington and its allies are exploring a possible effort to help secure the Kabul airport. General Mark Milley said a secure airport is essential for maintaining embassies in Afghanistan. The U.S. Central Command says it has completed the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan up to 20%. The CENTCOM has said that it has handed over control of 5 military facilities to the Afghan Ministry of Defense. In a statement, it said the U.S. forces have withdrawn 115 C-17 loads of equipment out of the country. It added the forces had turned over more than 5,000 pieces of equipment to be destroyed, but Washington did not specify the total number of troops still based in Afghanistan. Last week, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby said that the hidden figures are meant to protect troops from possible attacks. Pakistan has slammed the latest killings of 2 more civilians by Indian troops in occupied Kashmir. In a statement, the Foreign Office expressed concern over the intensification of fake encounters. It said the world must hold India accountable for its gross human rights violations. The Foreign Office said Indian forces have repeatedly targeted Kashmiri youth through extrajudicial killings. Pakistan has repeatedly called for an independent probe into the killings of innocent Kashmiris in fake encounters. China has condemned a U.S. warship's transit in Taiwan Strait, saying Washington is deliberately disrupting the regional situation. In a statement, a spokesperson for the Chinese Military Eastern Command said U.S. actions send wrong signals to Taiwan independence forces. The spokesperson noted such provocative moves endanger peace and stability across Taiwan Strait. He added Chinese forces tracked and monitored the ship's voyage and stand ready to deal with threats. Earlier, U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet said its warships conducted a routine Taiwan Strait transit in accordance with international law. It said the United States military will continue to fly, sail, and operate anywhere international law allows. The tension between the two powers have increased over a range of issues, including the South China Sea. India has logged a record of more than 4,500 deaths from COVID-19 overnight. The country has registered over 267,000 coronavirus cases in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.4 million lives and infected over 164 million people so far. World Health Organization's data shows global COVID-19 cases declined for the 3rd week in a row, bringing much-needed hope. However, the numbers are still at some of the highest levels over the course of the pandemic, demanding the need to keep the guard up. In India, doctors and other medical responders find themselves short-handed and underfunded. Health experts say combating the tremendous spread in rural areas has emerged as India's new challenge. Bangladesh has asked India to resume the shipments of coronavirus vaccines to Dhaka as agreed between the two in a deal. Taiwan has called for fair access to vaccines as it faces a dwindling supply of shots during a spike in domestic infections. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said 60% of American adults have received at least one vaccine dose. A study has found that AstraZeneca's vaccine works well as a 3rd booster jab. Meanwhile, Algeria has backed off a decision to reopen land borders, but will go ahead with a plan to partially resume international flights. In Pakistan, coronavirus has claimed 104 more lives in the past 24 hours. The health ministry said so far 19,856 people have died of the virus. It said more than 3,200 people tested positive for the virus overnight. The ministry has so far reported over 886,000 infections and nearly 800 recoveries so far. It has said that there are over 66,000 active cases in the country. The ministry noted more than 4,500 people are in critical condition. The U.S. House of Representatives has passed a bill that aims to counter a rise in anti-Asian hate crimes amid the pandemic. The House voted 364 to 62 in favor of the COVID Hate Crimes Act with a strong bipartisan vote. It passed by the Senate by a vote of 94 to 1 last month. The measure now goes to President Joe Biden for approval. The bill will create a new position at the Justice Department to expedite review of a potential COVID-19 related hate crimes. In Myanmar, the anti-coup protesters have continued. Several activists marched against the military rule in Mandalay and Sagaing region's Kale Township. Reportedly, Myanmar's military ordered a spyware months before the coup. The technology gives the army the power to listen to phone calls, view text messages and emails, and track user location. Meanwhile, fears for suppliers and shelters have grown in Chin State as the conflict between the army and insurgents has intensified. At least 805 people have been killed by the security forces since the February 1st coup. A Paris summit has promised to help Africa overcome the COVID-19 pandemic with a new deal. It aims to use global financial firepower to replenish dwindling reserves and ramp up a slow vaccine rollout. Saudi Arabia said it will support African countries with investments and loans worth $1 billion this year. French President Emmanuel Macron said the summit hoped patience will be lifted so Africa can produce its jabs. Macron staked an out aim of vaccinating 40% of people in Africa by the end of 2021. The summit was part of France's efforts to recast engagement in Africa, where it was once a colonial power. In India, the death toll from Cyclone Titthai has risen to 33. Authorities say over 90 people are still missing after the storm slammed into the western coast in Gujarat. Cyclone Titthai is the most powerful storm to batter the west coast in 2 decades. Hundreds of thousands of people have been left without electricity after the cyclone ripped out the pines. Officials say the cyclone has knocked over thousands of trees and blocked roads leading to the affected areas. Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani said over 16,000 houses have been damaged. Meteorological Department has warned of flash flooding due to heavy rains and gale force winds over the next 48 hours. In the U.S., Colonial Pipeline says its rescheduling system is back online after a network outage earlier in the day. This comes days after the pipeline reopened after a week-long ransomware attack. Officials say the internal server was disrupted due to system hardening efforts during the restoration process. Last week's closure of the 8,900-kilometer system was the most disruptive cyber attack on record. Thousands of gas stations across the U.S. ran out of fuel as the pipeline shut down its network. The pipeline transports more than 100 million gallons of fuel per day, which is nearly half of the East Coast supply. Welcome back. Asian stocks are trading mixed following the lukewarm trend in the U.S. equity futures. Concerns about faster inflation and COVID-19 flares up in some nations have rattled investors. The ASX 200 in Australia is leading the losses, tumbling nearly 2%. Japan's Nikkei 225 dropped over 1%, while shares in mainland China also slipped close to 1%. However, Seoul's Kospi and Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index have both gained over 1%. In football, Manchester United have been held to a 1-1 home draw by relegated Fulham in their penultimate Premier League match of the season. The match also marked the return of in-person spectators at Old Trafford after 14 months. Cavani netted a sublime lob from 40 meters in the 15th minute to delight 10,000 home fans. But United wasted a string of chances to add to their tally and were punished in the 76th minute. Brian got on the end of Bobby de Cordova-Reid's cross and headed it past goalkeeper David De Gea at the far post. With this, United have stretched their winless league run to 3 games after home defeats by Leicester City and Liverpool. But they have been qualified for the Champions League after assuring themselves a top 4 finish. In tennis, Roger Federer lost his first match in over 2 months as Pablo Adujar stunned him in the second round of the Geneva Open. The Spaniard beat the Swiss 6-4, 4-6, 6-4 in his return to the ATP Tour at the clay court. Federer missed nearly the entire 2020 season after undergoing knee surgery twice. He returned at the Qatar Open in March, but had not played since losing the quarterfinals in Doha. Adujar will next face Stefan Striker or Martin Fucsovics in the quarterfinals. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.